Let me ask you something. Have you ever noticed how some guys barely try, barely explain themselves, and somehow women move toward them? Meanwhile, other guys do everything right, text back fast, compliment nonstop, stay available, and still get ignored. That's not bad luck. And it's definitely not because women like jerks. What's really happening is psychological, and most men were never taught this. Here's the controversial truth no one likes to say out loud. Attraction is not created by effort alone. It's created by how you make someone feel when they're around you. And if you don't understand the psychology behind that, you'll keep working harder while getting less results. This isn't about tricks, manipulation, or controlling anyone. If that's what you're looking for, you're already playing the wrong game. This is about understanding the mental switches that naturally turn attraction on, and why so many men unknowingly flip them off. Most men are taught to chase approval, to prove value, to explain themselves, to over-communicate interest. Psychologically, that sends the exact opposite signal of what they intend. Instead of confidence, it communicates need. Instead of strength, it signals insecurity. And the brain, especially when it comes to attraction, responds more to emotional cues than logical ones. Women don't chase men because of lines, money, or perfect looks. They become interested when a man's presence creates curiosity, emotional safety, and a sense of challenge. When he's grounded, when he doesn't rush outcomes, when his behavior says, "I know who I am," without him ever having to say it. In this video, I'm going to break down the psychological principles of attraction that actually work in real life. Not dating app fantasy advice, not movie nonsense. Real human psychology, explained simply so you can actually apply it without becoming someone you're not. If you've ever felt invisible, overlooked, or confused about why things don't click even when you're trying your best, this isn't about blaming you. It's about upgrading your understanding. Because once you see how attraction really works, you stop chasing, and things start coming to you naturally. And that shift, that's where everything changes. 1. Why trying too hard is the fastest way to kill attraction. Let me stop you right here. Because if I were sitting next to you and watching how most men approach attraction, I'd probably say this quietly so it actually lands. You're doing too much. Not because you're weak, not because you're desperate, but because you've been taught that effort equals value. Psychologically, that's not how attraction works. Here's the controversial part most people won't tell you. Trying hard feels unattractive, even when your intentions are good. The human brain doesn't read effort the way men think it does. It reads emotional positioning. And when you try too hard, you position yourself as someone seeking approval instead of someone who already has self-worth. Think about it. When you over-text, over-explain, over-compliment, or constantly try to prove interest, you're subconsciously saying, "I need this outcome." And the moment someone senses that you need them to like you, attraction starts to fade. Not because they're cruel, but because need creates pressure, and pressure kills curiosity. Attraction grows in space, not force. Most men believe attraction is built by piling on more effort, more attention, more reassurance, more availability. But psychologically, the brain values what feels chosen, not what feels pushed. When something is always there, always eager, always trying, the mind stops wondering about it. And curiosity is the engine of attraction. This doesn't mean you should act cold or uninterested. That's just another form of trying too hard, just in disguise. Real confidence isn't about withholding. It's about self-regulation. You show interest, but you don't abandon yourself to do it. You engage, but you don't chase. You express, but you don't perform. Here's a simple mental shift that changes everything. Stop asking, "How do I get her to like me?" Start asking, "Am I showing up as someone who already likes his own life?" People are naturally drawn to those who are emotionally grounded. When you're calm, relaxed, and not rushing outcomes, it signals stability, and stability is deeply attractive. Even if no one consciously says it out loud, trying too hard also removes polarity. Attraction thrives on contrast. When your entire focus is on her, there's no tension, no intrigue, no emotional movement. You become predictable. And predictability feels safe, but not exciting. Men who don't try too hard aren't lazy or careless. They're selective. Their attention has weight because it isn't unlimited. And when attention has weight, it's felt more deeply. Another uncomfortable truth: effort doesn't increase value, scarcity does. Not fake scarcity, real scarcity. A full life, standards, boundaries, purpose outside of dating. When you don't hinge your emotional state on someone else's response, you automatically become more attractive because you're not asking them to complete you. So the goal isn't to do less, it's to do less from need. Speak when you mean it, act when it aligns, walk away when it doesn't. Let attraction grow naturally instead of forcing it on a timeline. The moment you stop trying to win someone and start letting them discover you, everything shifts. Because attraction isn't built by effort, it's built by presence. 2. The psychological reason confidence matters more than looks. Let me tell you something that might sting a little, but if you really hear it, it'll save you years of frustration. Most men think attraction starts with how you look, your height, your face, your body, your style. And yes, those things matter a little. But psychologically, they're not the deciding factor. Confidence is. Here's the controversial truth: confidence isn't attractive because it looks good. It's attractive because of what it signals to the brain. The human mind is constantly scanning for cues of safety, competence, and emotional stability. Confidence quietly communicates all three at once. When you're confident, people assume you know something they don't. They assume you're comfortable in your own skin. And most importantly, they assume you don't need validation to function. That's powerful. Now let's clear up a huge misunderstanding. Confidence is not loud. It's not bragging. It's not dominance. And it's definitely not arrogance. In fact, those are often signs of insecurity trying to cover itself up. Real confidence is calm. It's the way you speak without rushing, the way you hold eye contact without forcing it, the way you don't panic when there's silence. Psychologically, calm behavior tells the other person, "I'm okay regardless of the outcome." And when someone feels that from you, their guard drops. They feel less pressure, less evaluation, less performance anxiety, and attraction grows best in that relaxed emotional space. Here's why confidence beats looks every time. The brain trusts behavior more than appearance. Someone can look great and still feel unsafe emotionally. On the other hand, someone can look average but feel solid, grounded, and self-assured, and the brain responds more positively to that. You've probably seen this in real life. A guy who isn't conventionally attractive, but people gravitate toward him. Conversations flow. People listen when he talks. That's not an accident. His confidence makes others feel comfortable being themselves, and that creates connection. Another key psychological point: confidence creates polarity. When you're confident, you're not constantly adjusting yourself to be liked. You have opinions. You have preferences. You're willing to disagree calmly. That contrast between you and the other person creates energy, and attraction feeds on that energy. Insecurity does the opposite. It flattens everything. When you seek constant reassurance, over-explain your intentions, or worry about saying the right thing, you shift focus away from connection and onto approval. And the brain picks up on that instantly. It feels heavy. Not because you're doing something wrong, but because insecurity asks the other person to emotionally carry you. Confidence carries itself. And here's the part most men overlook: confidence isn't something you pretend into existence. It's built through self-trust, doing what you say you'll do, setting boundaries and keeping them, walking away from situations that don't align with you. Every time you act in alignment with yourself, confidence grows naturally. That's why confidence feels real when it's real, and fake when it's not. You don't need to be perfect. You don't need to impress. You don't need to outperform other men. You just need to be grounded in who you are and comfortable with uncertainty, because the most attractive signal you can send isn't "look at me," It's, I'm solid either way. And once you understand that, you stop worrying about how you look and start showing up in a way people can actually feel. 3. Why emotional control makes you more attractive than attention. Let's talk about something most men don't want to admit, but almost every man has felt: that inner tension when you care a little too much. When your mood starts to depend on how fast someone responds, how warm they sound, or whether the energy feels right. That emotional pull, it's human. But psychologically, it's also where attraction quietly slips away. Here's the controversial truth: attention doesn't create attraction, emotional control does. A lot of men believe being present, available, and emotionally invested is what builds connection. And while those things matter, they only work when they're paired with self-control. Without emotional control, attention stops feeling warm and starts feeling heavy. People can feel emotional instability before they can explain it. When your emotions rise and fall based on someone else's behavior, it creates pressure, even if you never say a word about it. The brain senses that pressure and instinctively pulls back, not out of cruelty, but out of self-protection. Emotional control isn't about being cold or distant. It's about being steady. It's knowing what you feel without being ruled by it. It's staying grounded even when things feel uncertain. It's not rushing to fix, chase, or secure something the moment it feels unclear. That steadiness sends a powerful psychological signal: I can handle myself. And that signal is deeply attractive. When you don't emotionally spiral, overreact, or seek constant reassurance, you create emotional safety. You show that your inner world is stable, that you're not looking for someone else to regulate your emotions for you. And people are naturally drawn to those who feel emotionally self-contained. Attention without control feels like demand. Attention with control feels like choice. That difference matters more than most men realize. Emotional control also creates space for the other person to feel. When you're not flooding the situation with emotional energy, there's room for curiosity, anticipation, and investment to grow naturally. Attraction needs room to breathe. When emotions are constantly spilling out, there's nowhere for interest to build. Another hard truth: needing emotional outcomes repels attraction. When you need reassurance, clarity, or validation to feel okay, it subtly communicates insecurity. Not because you're weak, but because you're outsourcing your emotional stability. And the mind resists taking on that responsibility. Men who are emotionally controlled don't suppress feelings. They process them internally. They respond instead of react. They don't let momentary emotions dictate long-term behavior. That restraint reads as strength, not dominance, not arrogance, but quiet confidence. And here's the part that really shifts things: emotional control changes how you experience attraction too. You stop overthinking every interaction. You stop attaching your self-worth to outcomes. You stay present instead of anxious. That inner calm makes you more authentic, and authenticity is magnetic. This isn't about pretending not to care. It's about caring without losing yourself. When you master emotional control, your attention becomes valuable because it's not automatic, it's intentional. And intention always carries more weight than intensity. So if you want to be more attractive, don't ask how to give more attention. Ask how to stay grounded when emotions show up, because the man who controls his emotions doesn't chase connection. He creates an environment where connection naturally wants to stay. 4. How mystery beats oversharing. Every single time. Let's slow this down for a second, because this is where a lot of men sabotage themselves without realizing it. And I'm saying this calmly, not to attack you, but to wake you up. Most men talk themselves out of attraction, not because they say the wrong thing, but because they say everything. Here's the uncomfortable truth: oversharing doesn't create closeness the way you think it does. Psychologically, it does the opposite. When you explain too much, reveal too fast, or constantly clarify your intentions, you remove the very thing attraction feeds on: Curiosity. Mystery isn't about playing games, it's about pacing. A lot of men confuse honesty with emotional dumping. They believe being open means laying everything out immediately: thoughts, plans, feelings, insecurities, expectations. What they don't realize is that the brain bonds through discovery, not information overload. When there's nothing left to discover, interest plateaus. Here's where the criticism comes in, and take this as respect, not judgment. Men overshare because they're trying to control outcomes. They want certainty, they want reassurance, they want to lock things in early so they don't feel anxious. That impulse is understandable, but it's also exactly what drains attraction. Attraction needs room to move. When you explain yourself constantly, you leave no space for interpretation, imagination, or emotional investment. The other person doesn't get to wonder about you. And when there's nothing to wonder about, there's nothing pulling them forward. Mystery isn't silence, it's restraint. It's knowing you don't need to prove your depth, value, or intentions up front. It's trusting that who you are will reveal itself naturally over time. And that trust, both in yourself and in the process, is what makes mystery feel confident instead of calculated. Here's the wake-up advice most men need to hear. Stop narrating yourself. You don't need to explain why you feel the way you feel. You don't need to justify your pace. You don't need to convince anyone of your sincerity. When you do, you're not being transparent. You're seeking validation. Calm confidence shows up as selectiveness. You share, but you don't unload. You speak, but you don't over-clarify. You allow silence without rushing to fill it. And psychologically, that signals self-assurance. Another important point: mystery allows the other person to emotionally participate. When everything is handed to them fully formed, there's no involvement required. But when things unfold gradually, they become part of the experience. And people value what they help build. Oversharing also collapses polarity. When all emotional cards are on the table immediately, there's no tension, no movement, no anticipation. Attraction thrives in the space between moments, not in constant emotional exposure. This isn't about hiding, it's about respecting timing. The men who understand this don't feel the need to rush connection. They're comfortable letting interest grow naturally. They trust that if something is real, it won't disappear just because they didn't explain everything immediately. So here's the simple shift: share less, observe more. Let curiosity work for you instead of against you, because mystery isn't about being distant. It's about being grounded enough to let attraction unfold on its own terms. 5. Why walking away can increase attraction more than chasing. Let's end this with a truth most men resist at first, but once it clicks, it changes everything. Walking away isn't a loss. Psychologically, it's often the strongest signal you can send. Most men are taught that persistence equals strength, that staying longer, trying harder, and pushing through uncertainty proves commitment. But attraction doesn't respond to endurance, it responds to self-respect. And self-respect is communicated through your willingness to walk away when something no longer aligns. Here's the calm but controversial reality. Chasing tells the other person you value them more than you value yourself. Even if you never say it out loud, behavior speaks first. When you keep leaning in while energy is low, unclear, or one-sided, you silently teach others how to treat you, and the brain notices. Walking away doesn't mean anger. It doesn't mean punishment. It doesn't mean trying to trigger a reaction. That's not power. That's still chasing, just in a different outfit. Real walking away is quiet. It's emotionally clean. It's choosing not to invest where investment isn't being met. Psychologically, this does two things. First, it restores balance. When you remove yourself from a situation that lacks reciprocity, you stop overfunctioning emotionally. You're no longer compensating for uncertainty. That steadiness shifts how you're perceived, because calm withdrawal signals confidence. Second, it creates contrast, not artificial scarcity, but real absence. And absence gives the mind space to reflect. When you're no longer constantly present, attention has room to reorganize. Interest either rises naturally or it doesn't. Either way, you gain clarity. Men often fear walking away because they think it means giving up control. In reality, it's the opposite. Walking away is choosing control over your own standards. And here's the part that really matters. Attraction grows where there's mutual choice. When someone feels free to choose you, not pressured, not chased, not convinced, the connection is cleaner and stronger. Walking away preserves that freedom. This also protects you emotionally. When you stay too long in unclear situations, you train yourself to tolerate imbalance. Over time, that erodes confidence. Walking away early keeps your self-trust intact. And self-trust is one of the most attractive qualities you can develop. Men who understand this don't threaten to leave. They don't announce boundaries loudly. They simply live by them. Their actions are consistent. Their energy is calm. And their presence feels intentional because it's not guaranteed. Here's the grounding shift to remember. You're not walking away to make someone miss you. You're walking away because you respect yourself. If attraction returns, it does so naturally. If it doesn't, you've saved yourself time, energy, and self-doubt. Because the man who can walk away without bitterness isn't losing connection. He's choosing alignment. And that choice alone changes how everything else unfolds. Let me end this with a statement that's going to make a lot of people uncomfortable. But that's exactly why it matters. If you constantly feel like you're chasing attraction, it's because you're not living from self-respect. You're living from hope. That's controversial because most men don't want to hear it. Hope feels safer than responsibility. Hope says, if I just say the right thing, do a little more, wait a little longer, it'll work out. But attraction doesn't grow from hope. It grows from alignment. And alignment requires honesty, with yourself first. Everything we talked about in this video comes down to one core idea. Attraction responds to how you show up internally, not how hard you push externally. The moment you stop trying to manage outcomes, stop trying to secure validation, and stop trying to be chosen, you become someone who can be chosen. This isn't about winning, it's about grounding. Most men don't struggle with attraction because they're lacking something. They struggle because they give too much power away. They abandon their emotional center the moment they care. And the wake-up call is this: no one is attracted to someone who has left themselves behind. If any part of this video hit a nerve, that's not a bad thing. That's awareness. And awareness is where real change starts. I want you to do something simple but important. Go down to the comments and share your experience. What patterns did you recognize? Where have you been trying too hard, oversharing, chasing, or ignoring your own standards? You don't have to impress anyone. Just be honest. I read the comments, and when I can, I reach out. Because this isn't about talking at you. It's about building understanding with you. You're not the only one navigating this, even if it sometimes feels that way. Attraction isn't a trick. It's a reflection. And the moment you stop asking how to be wanted and start asking how to be aligned, everything shifts. Stay grounded, stay honest, and let the right connections meet you where you already stand.